Have you ever felt tired from doing nothing? A strange kind of exhaustion that has nothing to do with physical work. It's the quiet burnout that happens on a Sunday afternoon when you have a list of 100 things you could do and you end up doing none of them. You stare at a wall. You scroll endlessly. You feel a gentle humming anxiety in your chest. It's the feeling of 1,000 open doors and being paralyzed in the hallway. This feeling has a name that we don't often use for it. We call it freedom. The freedom to be anything, to do anything, to choose from an infinite menu of lives, careers, and even what to watch tonight. But if it's freedom, why does it so often feel like a weight? This isn't a feeling of being trapped by limitations. That's a different kind of pain. This is the opposite. It's the strange modern ache of being trapped by possibility. The quiet panic that comes from knowing you could be making a better choice, a different choice, an optimal choice, and the fear that every single decision you make is closing the door on 100 better ones. It's a uniquely modern prison, one whose walls are built not of brick, but of options. And its bars are forged from the quiet, persistent question that haunts our every move. Did I choose right?
That question echoes in the smallest moments of the day. You're in the grocery store, looking at a wall of olive oil. There are 50 different kinds: extra virgin, cold-pressed, organic, unfiltered, from Italy, from Greece, from California. The quiet thought that surfaces isn't, what do I need? It's, what's the best one? Which one do the experts use? If I pick the wrong one, will my meal be slightly less good than it could have been? Suddenly, a simple task becomes a research project. You feel a subtle wave of fatigue. You just grab one, and for the rest of the day, a tiny part of your brain wonders if you made a mistake. This feeling, this low-grade anxiety, is a constant companion. It's there when you're scrolling through Netflix, spending more time choosing a movie than watching one. The internal monologue is a frantic whisper. What if I pick a bad one? That's 2 hours of my life I won't get back. Maybe there's a hidden gem I'm missing. The pressure to optimize your leisure time is so high that leisure itself becomes a chore. You feel annoyed at yourself because this should be easy, it should be relaxing, but it isn't. It's there when you're looking at your career. The narrative of our time is that you can be anything: a coder, a creator, an entrepreneur, a traveler. So when you're in a job that's just fine, the weight of all those other potential lives feels immense. The inner voice doesn't say, I'm grateful to have a steady job. It asks, is this the most fulfilling path? Am I wasting my potential? Look at all those other people online living those other lives. They seem happier. They seem to have chosen better. This comparison turns a perfectly acceptable reality into a source of chronic, quiet dissatisfaction. And it's there when you're simply trying to decide on a restaurant with friends. The simple question, what do you want to eat, becomes a complex negotiation, not with others, but with yourself. You are mentally juggling reviews, price points, locations, and the fear of being the one to suggest a place that ends up being a disappointment. It feels safer to just say, I'm good with anything, abdicating the choice entirely because the burden of making the perfect choice is just too heavy to carry in that moment. Without realizing it, you've learned to navigate this world of choice through a specific repeating pattern, a silent loop that runs in the background of your mind. It begins with a sense of opportunity, a new project, a free weekend, a new beginning. Initially, this feels good. It feels like potential. The world is open. You see a dozen paths branching out before you. There's a brief spark of excitement. I could do this, or I could do that. The possibilities are endless. This is the peak of the emotional cycle. Then, The second stage begins, the research, the analysis. You start gathering information. You read reviews, you watch videos, you ask for opinions, you make spreadsheets in your mind. This part feels productive. It feels responsible. You're trying to be a good steward of your own life, to make an informed decision. But slowly, imperceptibly, the goal shifts. It moves from finding a good option to finding the perfect option. And this is where the paralysis starts to creep in. The more you learn, the more you see the downsides of every choice. The more options you discover, the more you fear missing out on the one you haven't found yet. The initial excitement fades and is replaced by a low-grade hum of anxiety. The open field of possibility now feels like a tangled forest. Every path looks uncertain. The weight of making the right move becomes heavier and heavier. This is the third stage, the overwhelm. And finally, you either make a choice out of pure exhaustion, or you make no choice at all. You just stop. You let the moment pass. You stay in the same job. You rewatch the same show. You go to the same restaurant. Not because it's what you truly want, but because it's easier than engaging with the sheer volume of alternatives. The loop closes with a vague feeling of disappointment and a quiet sense of self-reproach. Why is this so hard for me? Why can't I just pick something? This cycle repeats every day, in moments big and small, draining your mental energy, one tiny choice at a time. One of these decision loops is trivial. 100 of them in a week is a burden. Thousands of them over years, and it starts to change you. It creates an emotional residue that builds up over time. This isn't a sudden crisis. It's a slow, quiet erosion of your own confidence. You start to trust yourself less. Every decision, no matter how small, becomes a performance review of your own judgment. The internal dialogue after making a choice becomes a cross-examination. Was that really the best use of my money? Was that the most productive way to spend my morning? Did I say the right thing in that conversation? You begin to see your life not as a series of experiences to be lived, but as a series of problems to be optimized. And you, the chooser, are constantly failing the test. This accumulated weight begins to manifest as a constant state of second-guessing. You buy a shirt, and the next day you see a slightly better one. The feeling isn't, oh, that's a nice shirt, it's a pang of regret. I should have waited. I chose too soon. This feeling of post-decision regret becomes so common, so expected, that you start to fear the very act of choosing. The anticipation of future regret is what keeps you stuck in the present, endlessly scrolling, endlessly researching, hoping to find the one mythical, regret-proof option. Over a long enough timeline, this can curdle into a form of passive living. You stop being the active designer of your life and become a passive consumer of default options. It feels safer to let algorithms choose your music and your news. It feels easier to follow the path of least resistance, the one your friends are on, the one your parents expected. The energy required to constantly forge your own path through the jungle of infinite choice is simply too high. So you stay on the paved road, even if it doesn't lead anywhere you're excited to go. The quiet tragedy is that you mistake this exhaustion as a lack of passion, a lack of ambition. You think there's something wrong with you, when in fact, you were just running on empty. And when we feel this way, paralyzed, exhausted, and vaguely disappointed, we do what humans do best. We create a story to explain it. We identify an enemy. And almost always, the enemy we choose is ourselves. The story goes like this: I am lazy. This is the most common and the most cutting self-diagnosis. You see the gap between all the things you could be doing and the one thing you are doing, which is often nothing, and you label that gap laziness. It feels true because it's simple. It assigns blame clearly. It doesn't require a complex understanding of psychology, it just requires you to judge yourself. The feeling is one of personal failure, a defect in your character. You tell yourself, other people can just get things done. I can't. I must be lazy. Another chapter in this story is, I am indecisive. We wear this label almost like a quirky personality trait, but underneath it's a deep self-criticism. We see our inability to make a swift choice as a flaw in our wiring. The internal monologue is one of frustration. Why can't you just pick one? It's not that hard. Everyone else seems to manage. This narrative ignores the crushing weight of the options and focuses solely on the person struggling to lift it. It makes you feel small, weak, and fundamentally incapable compared to the decisive, confident people you imagine exist everywhere else. Then there's the even darker story. Maybe I just don't want it enough. When you fail to choose a path and commit to it, you begin to question your own desire. You see your friends pursuing their careers with vigor, and you think, they must have some fire in them that I lack. They have passion. I don't. This is perhaps the most painful narrative, because it suggests you are hollow inside. You start to believe you are passively drifting, not because you are overwhelmed, but because you are empty. These stories are so believable because they provide a simple answer to a complex pain, but they are all based on a false premise. They assume that you, the individual, are the broken component. They never stop to ask if maybe, just maybe, the machine you're being asked to operate is broken instead.
The enemy isn't a lack of willpower. It's not a character flaw. The enemy is the sheer, overwhelming, and unnatural volume of the choices themselves. To understand what's happening, we don't need to look at your character. We need to look at the math of the human brain. Your mind is an incredible tool, but it was not designed for the world it now lives in. For thousands of years, human choices were few and simple. Which fruit to eat, which path to take. The options were limited, and the consequences were immediate. Our brains evolved to handle that world. But today, you are asked to make more choices in a single day than your ancestors made in a month. The core psychological mechanism at play here is known as the paradox of choice. The paradox is that while we assume more options lead to more freedom and therefore more happiness, the opposite is true. Past a certain point, more choices lead to less freedom and more anxiety. They lead to paralysis. Imagine your ability to make decisions is like a glass of water. Every single choice you consider, no matter how small, takes a tiny sip from that glass. What should I wear? Sip. What should I have for breakfast? Sip. Which email should I answer first? Sip. These are small. But then come the big ones. Which career path is right for me? That's not a sip. That's like trying to pour a gallon of consideration into your tiny glass. The sheer number of options, the research, the comparison, the what-ifs, it completely overflows the glass. Now here's the crucial part. As you consider more and more options for any single decision, two things happen. First, the potential for regret increases exponentially. If you choose between two restaurants and one is bad, you know you should have gone to the other one. But if you choose between 50 restaurants and yours is just okay, you are haunted by the 49 other possibilities that might have been transcendent. Your brain tries to calculate this, and it becomes overwhelmed. Second, your expectations escalate. When there are only a few options, you're happy to find one that's good enough. But when there are hundreds of options, your brain assumes that the perfect one must exist. The goal is no longer satisfaction, it's optimization, and perfect is an impossible target.
So even when you make a great choice, it feels like a failure because it wasn't perfect. Your glass of water is now empty. This is decision fatigue. And when the glass is empty, your brain does the only logical thing it can. It shuts down. It defaults to the easiest option, which is usually doing nothing. It's not laziness. It's a depleted resource. You are not broken. You are simply out of water. So let's take a moment here. Breathe. I want you to hear this and really let it sink in. That feeling of paralysis you have when faced with a big life decision is not a personal failing. It is a perfectly normal response to an abnormal amount of stimulus. That exhaustion you feel at the end of a day where you did nothing is real. You weren't resting. Your brain was running 1,000 simulations, comparing 100 possible futures and burning through its energy reserves just to stand still. That is incredibly hard work. The indecisiveness you criticize in yourself is not a character flaw. It is a defense mechanism. It's your brain's way of protecting you from the anticipated pain of regret. It's a system trying to prevent a future wound by refusing to make the move that could cause it. You are not lazy. You are overwhelmed. You are not motivated. You are overstimulated. You are not broken. You are a human being with a finite amount of mental energy living in a world that pretends that energy is infinite. The story you've been telling yourself, the one about you being the problem, is wrong. It was a simple explanation for a complex feeling, but it's time to let that story go. You can put it down. It's a weight you no longer need to carry. You have been fighting the wrong battle. You have been punching yourself when the real opponent was the sheer noise of the world. And the first step to feeling better is not to try harder. It's to forgive yourself for being human. Once we stop blaming ourselves, we can start to see the problem for what it really is. Not a matter of willpower, but a matter of strategy. You don't need a new personality. You just need a new system for navigating the noise. The shift begins with changing your identity. For years, you may have seen yourself as the person who is bad at making decisions. A core part of how you think of yourself is wrapped up in this struggle. The goal now is to gently reframe that. You are not an indecisive person. You are a thoughtful person who has been given too many things to think about. See the difference? One is a judgment, the other is a circumstance. This awareness is the first tool. Simply noticing the feeling of choice overload as it happens is incredibly powerful. When you're standing in that grocery aisle and you feel that familiar wave of anxiety, the new thought isn't, why am I like this? The new thought is, there it is. That's the paradox of choice kicking in. My brain is being asked to do an impossible calculation. Just naming the mechanism creates distance. It separates you, the person, from the process happening inside your brain. You are no longer the storm. You are the one watching the storm. This leads to a fundamental change in your goal. Your old goal was to always make the best choice. This is the source of all the pain. It's an impossible target that guarantees you will always feel like you're failing. Your new goal is to simply make a good enough choice and then move on. This isn't about lowering your standards. It's about reclaiming your life. It's about recognizing that the time and energy you spend trying to move from a 9 out of 10 choice to a 10 out of 10 choice is a terrible investment. That last 10% of optimization costs you 90% of your peace. The perspective shift is accepting that good enough is not a compromise. It is the most strategic, intelligent, and compassionate way to live in the modern world. It is the secret to getting your energy back. So, how do we begin to live this way? This isn't about a sudden, dramatic life overhaul. It's about small, gentle adjustments. It's about what to stop doing and what to start noticing. First, let's talk about what to stop forcing. Stop trying to find the perfect option. Let that go. Release yourself from the job of chief optimizer of your own life. You don't have to find the absolute best movie, the perfect career, or the most optimal morning routine. This relentless search is the source of your exhaustion. The permission you need to grant yourself is the permission to be satisfied with good. When you find a restaurant that looks good, a shirt you like, or a project that seems interesting, just choose it. Don't open 20 more tabs. Don't look for a slightly better version. The best choice is often just the one that allows you to stop choosing and start living. Next is what to start noticing. Start noticing the physical feeling of decision fatigue. Where in your body do you feel it? Is it a tension in your shoulders, a tightness in your chest, a foggy feeling in your head? When you start to feel this, don't push through it. Recognize it as a signal. It's your brain's fuel light turning on. It's telling you that you need to simplify. It's a sign to reduce the number of inputs. This is your cue to step away from the research, close the laptop, and make a decision with the information you already have. Your body knows when you've had enough long before your conscious mind is willing to admit it. And finally, what to allow long-term. Allow yourself to use constraints as a tool. Instead of seeing infinite choice as a gift, see it as a problem to be solved. And the solution is to build walls around your options. Give yourself fewer choices intentionally. Decide you'll only look for jobs in one city. Decide you'll only choose a movie from the trending list. Wear a personal uniform. Eat the same breakfast every day. These aren't acts of boring repetition. They are strategic acts of liberation. Every choice you eliminate from your life is a piece of your mental energy you get back to spend on the things that truly matter. It's about building a cage not to trap yourself, but to keep the overwhelming noise of the world out.
I want you to imagine for a moment what this feels like. Imagine waking up one morning a few months from now. The feeling isn't one of pressure, of a long list of things you should be doing. It's a feeling of quiet clarity. You go to your closet to get dressed, and because you've simplified it, the choice is easy. It takes 10 seconds. There is no debate. You don't waste the first precious moments of your day on a trivial decision. That little sip of mental water is still in your glass. You sit down to work. You look at your to-do list, which has only 3 things on it, because you've decided that's your limit. You know exactly what to start on. There is no paralysis. There is no hour spent scrolling through emails, wondering where to begin. You just begin. The feeling is not one of frantic, caffeinated motivation. It's a calm, steady sense of forward momentum. Later in the day, a friend asks you to dinner. They ask where you want to go. The old you would have said, I don't know, what are you in the mood for? But the new you says, how about that Italian place we like? You've made a choice. It might not be the perfect choice for the evening, but it's a good one. And you feel a sense of relief, not anxiety. You've taken the burden off everyone and given them the gift of a decision. As you lie in bed that night, you're not replaying your day, auditing every choice you made for possible errors. You're not worrying about whether you're on the right life path. You feel a sense of peace. You made a few good, simple choices. You did a few things that mattered. You connected with people you care about. The feeling isn't the exhilarating high of crushing it. It's the deep, sustainable peace of being in control of your own attention. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing that your life is not a test to be passed, but a thing to be lived. And you are finally, truly living it. Now, this shift is not a straight line. It's not a switch that you flip once and you're cured forever. There will be days when you fall back into old patterns.
You will find yourself an hour deep into researching the best kind of coffee maker, and you'll suddenly realize what you're doing. You'll feel that old familiar wave of anxiety and self-blame. The important thing is what you do in that moment. The old response would be to get angry with yourself. See, I can't change. I'm still broken. The new response is one of gentle awareness. Ah, there it is again. The old programming. That's okay. You don't have to be perfect at this. The goal is not perfection, it's compassion. You just gently close the tabs, you remind yourself that a good enough coffee maker is all you need, and you move on with your day without the heavy baggage of self-judgment. Healing is not about never feeling the old anxiety again. It's about the time it takes you to recover from it. At first, it might take you a whole day to shake that feeling. Then, it might only take an hour, then just a few minutes. Eventually, you can catch it in the moment, smile at the absurdity of it, and let it go. There will be big life decisions that still feel overwhelming, choosing a place to live or making a career change. This new mindset doesn't make those decisions easy, it just makes them possible. It allows you to accept that there is no perfect path and that you just have to choose one and start walking. You will make mistakes. You will choose paths that lead to dead ends, and that is part of the process. It's not a sign you chose wrong, it's just a sign that you're trying. The freedom you've been seeking is not on the other side of more options. It's on the other side of fewer. True freedom isn't the ability to choose anything. It's the ability to choose what matters and to let the rest go. It's the peace that comes from knowing that a good life is not about having the best of everything, but about making the best of what you have. This isn't something you fix overnight. It's a practice. It's a slow, quiet, and kind process of reclaiming your attention from a world that wants to steal it. Be patient with yourself. You are unlearning a lifetime of programming. If this story resonated with you, if you saw a piece of your own experience in it, you are not alone in this feeling. Millions of us are navigating this same quiet struggle. Perhaps share this with one person who you think might need to hear it. Not to give them advice, but just to let them know that you see them. Sometimes the most powerful thing is just knowing that someone else understands. Thank you for spending your time here.